Good people do not burn out because they are weak. They burn out because they carry more than they show. They are reliable. They are responsible. They say yes when others hesitate. They absorb pressure quietly. They keep things moving when everything feels unstable. And that is exactly why they collapse first. Most people believe burnout comes from working too hard. Too many hours. Too many responsibilities. Too much stress. Psychology shows something more uncomfortable. Burnout is not caused by workload, it is caused by invisible emotional labor. Good people do not just do the work. They regulate the emotional environment. They smooth tension. They prevent conflict. They anticipate problems before they happen. They take responsibility even when it is not theirs. They do this automatically, not because someone asked, but because their identity demands it. Here is the part most people miss. Good people do not feel allowed to fail. They do not feel allowed to disappoint. They do not feel allowed to rest before permission is granted, so they push and push and push until the nervous system collapses. Burnout is not sudden, it is cumulative. Every time you override fatigue, every time you silence frustration, every time you choose responsibility over recovery, you are teaching your nervous system one message: your needs come last. Over time, the body listens. This is why burnout often hits people who appear calm, capable, put together. From the outside, they look stable. From the inside, they are managing constant internal pressure. Good people often mistake endurance for strength, but endurance without recovery is not strength. It is erosion. Here is the psychological trap. Good people believe their value comes from being useful, from being dependable, from being the one others lean on. So when pressure increases, they do not pull back. They step forward, they fill the gaps, they take on more. They compensate for dysfunction, and slowly, they become the system. But systems are not meant to feel. Humans are. This is where burnout begins. Not when stress appears, but when stress becomes identity, when being strong becomes non-negotiable, when saying no feels like failure, when rest feels undeserved. Psychology calls this self-imposed pressure, but it does not feel self-imposed, it feels necessary, because good people are often rewarded for self-sacrifice. They are praised for endurance, they are trusted more, given more responsibility, more expectation, until their nervous system reaches a breaking point. And when good people finally collapse, everyone is surprised. They say, "You were doing so well." They did not see the cost, because good people hide it. Burnout is not a lack of resilience. It is a lack of boundaries disguised as virtue. And until this pattern is understood, good people will keep burning out first. If this feels familiar, it's not because you're weak. It's because you were trained to carry more than you should. Burnout is not just exhaustion. It is nervous system overload. When pressure becomes constant, the brain stops distinguishing between urgency and danger. Stress hormones remain elevated. Recovery never fully happens. The body stays in a low-level survival state. Good people are especially vulnerable to this because they delay their own stress response. They do not react immediately. They suppress signals. They postpone discomfort. This looks like emotional control, but neurologically it is emotional accumulation. Every unexpressed boundary, every swallowed frustration, every unacknowledged limit gets stored in the body. Burnout happens when storage exceeds capacity. Here is a critical psychological difference. People who burn out first are not the most anxious. They are the most conscientious. They monitor everything. They think ahead. They calculate consequences. They prevent mistakes. This constant cognitive vigilance drains mental energy. The brain never fully rests. Even during downtime, they are still processing, still anticipating, still preparing. Psychology calls this hyper-responsibility. It creates the illusion of control, but removes recovery. Another key factor: good people internalize stress. When something goes wrong, they ask, "What did I miss? What should I have done differently?" They personalize outcomes, even when they were not in control. This keeps the nervous system engaged, because unresolved responsibility feels unfinished. Unfinished loops exhaust the brain. Meanwhile, others offload stress. They externalize, they detach, they disconnect, not because they are stronger, but because they are less internally bound. Good people stay mentally connected long after the situation ends. This is why rest does not feel restful. The body stops, the mind continues. Burnout is the moment when this internal pressure becomes unsustainable. Not because one thing broke, but because nothing ever released. Here is the hardest truth. Good people are often trained this way early in life. They learned that being good meant being low maintenance, being mature, being the stable one. They learned that emotions should be controlled, needs should be delayed, problems should be handled quietly. This conditioning creates high-functioning adults and exhausted nervous systems. Burnout is not failure, it is feedback. It is the body saying, this pattern cannot continue. But good people misinterpret burnout. They think they need more discipline, more resilience, more effort, so they try to push through, which accelerates collapse. Real recovery does not come from pushing less, it comes from reinterpreting responsibility. Not everything is yours to carry. Not everything requires your intervention. Not every problem deserves your nervous system. Burnout begins when you believe otherwise, and it ends when perception changes. Good people do not burn out because they care too much. They burn out because they care without limits. Psychology shows that sustainability requires selective engagement. Calm, resilient individuals are not less caring. They are more precise. They choose where their energy goes. They allow others to experience consequences. They do not rescue prematurely. This is not selfishness, it is regulation. Here is the shift that prevents burnout from responsibility to discernment. Instead of asking, what do I need to handle? They ask, what is actually mine to carry? This single question changes everything. Good people often confuse kindness with availability, but availability without recovery becomes self-abandonment. Burnout is not solved by rest alone, because rest without boundary leads back to the same cycle. The nervous system needs proof that it is safe to stop. That proof comes from boundaries, from saying no without justification, from allowing discomfort in others, from tolerating guilt without reacting to it. This feels wrong at first, because good people are conditioned to equate guilt with failure. But guilt is not danger, it is conditioning. When you stop overfunctioning, the nervous system slowly recalibrates. Stress hormones reduce mental clarity, returns, energy, stabilizes. Not because life became easier, but because perception became healthier. Here is the paradox. The people who last longest are not the ones who give the most. They are the ones who recover the fastest. Recovery is not passive, it is intentional. It is choosing rest before collapse, clarity before obligation, self-regulation before self-sacrifice. Good people often believe they must earn rest. Psychology shows rest is a biological requirement, not a reward. Burnout teaches this lesson harshly, but effectively it strips away illusion and exposes limits. When good people learn to respect those limits, they become sustainable, not colder, not detached, but clearer. They still care, they just no longer carry what is not theirs. This is why some people seem strong for decades while others burn out early. Strength is not how much you endure, it is how well you regulate. Goodness without boundaries leads to collapse. Goodness with discernment leads to longevity, and that is the difference. Burnout is not the cost of being good. It is the cost of being good without protection. Calm, resilient people are not harder. They are healthier. They have learned that being good should never require self-destruction. And once this understanding clicks, burnout stops being inevitable. It becomes optional. Burnout doesn't mean you failed. It means your nervous system refused to keep lying for you.